Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South Africa's military overhauls its dress policy to allow Muslim servicewomen to wear religious headscarves. The change comes after 3 years of battling by a female major. Also, Kenya and Somalia's diplomatic spat continues. Nairobi says it is not at all involved in a conflict near Somalia's borders. Mogadishu threatens to leave regional bloc IGAD for rejecting its complaint against its neighbour. And we meet a graffiti artist who was named one of the world's most influential for his Beyond Walls movement. The creative was recently working in South Africa's Cape Town. We take a look at his project there. But first, after 3 years of legal wrangling, the South African military has changed its dress policy to allow Muslim servicewomen to wear hijabs whilst on duty. The victory comes after a major who had faced dismissal for refusing to take off her headscarf battled for her right to wear it. Sam Bradpeace tells us more.
In 2018, Major Fatima Isaacs was told by a senior commander at the military hospital where she was working that she was not allowed to wear a hijab underneath her beret because it violated the military's dress code. Now, when she refused to comply because of her religious beliefs, she was faced with criminal charges in a military court. Now, after a lengthy battle, those charges were dropped last year. The Legal Resources Centre, LRC, that's a human rights organisation representing Major Isaacs, pushed for those charges to be dropped, and they then took things one step further, going to the Equalities Court to demand a permanent amendment to the military's dress code. Their hard work paid off. A spokesperson for the South African Defence Forces confirmed to me this morning that hijabs were now permitted in the armed services. Also, the lawyers representing Major Isaacs are delighted by the news.
The general dress policy of the military, so the SANDF, it was unconstitutional to the extent that it limited Major Isaacs and other Muslim women within the SANDF's rights to freedom of religion, equality, and dignity. So that's why them affirming that they've amended the policy, it's really, it shows that they can now exercise their rights without prejudice or fear.
Major Isaacs herself is delighted by the ruling and thankful for all of those who supported her in her fight against discrimination.
Sam Bradpeace there for us. Now, the African Union has secured another 400 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines for the continent, taking it closer to the 1.5 billion needed to immunise the target of 60% of people. The new stock will be added to that from the WHO's COVAX scheme and others that the AU had previously reserved, making a total of around 1.27 billion currently available doses. Most of Africa still hasn't started vaccination programs as they've struggled to source supplies. Some countries have seen a resurgence in cases of coronavirus. There's also concern about the spread of the South African variant of the virus. Meanwhile, Senegal has recorded its first case of the more contagious UK strain of coronavirus. Across the continent, the hope is that vaccination drives may start in March. And Kenya has denied having anything to do with the conflict in Somalia's Gedo region. It comes a day after Mogadishu threatened to withdraw from the East African Regional Group after it backed Nairobi in an escalating diplomatic spat between the two countries. Mogadishu's accused its neighbour of violating its sovereignty and cut diplomatic ties last month. The IGAD blocs rejected Somalia's complaint. Mikelwa Shachwayu tells us more.
When Somalia cut diplomatic ties with Kenya more than a month ago, it wrote to a regional bloc of 8 member countries, known by its acronym IGAD, demanding an independent mission to verify claims that Kenya was arming and training militia in Somalia near their common border. The fact-finding mission was led by the Djiboutian ambassador to Kenya. It released a report saying that it found no evidence of violations by Kenya. The report criticized Somalia for severing ties with Kenya and said that historical problems faced by the two countries could only be solved through deeper diplomatic engagements. The Somali government doesn't agree. Somalia's foreign minister said that the investigators were biased, unfair, and were predetermined to exonerate Kenya. The report comes just days after fighting broke out in a town in Somalia near its border with Kenya. More than 20 people were killed. Most of them were children. Local aid agencies said that at least 30,000 people fled their homes. The Somali information minister said the fighting was between rebels backed by Kenya and the Somali armed forces. The Kenyan government rejected the accusations. This comes as Somalia is facing a political crisis. It's due to hold elections next month. President Abdullahi Mohamed Abdullahi is seeking a second term. But there's no agreement between him and some of the political opposition on how the elections should proceed. Electoral tensions are widely seen to be fueling the fallout between Somalia and Kenya. The Somali government thinks its opponents are being backed by Kenya.
Mikawa Shachwai there for us. Look now at some news in brief. Rights group Amnesty International has accused Nigeria of trying to cover up the killing of 12 people during peaceful protests against police brutality last year. The victims of the Lekki toll gate massacre in Lagos were killed when security forces opened fire on demonstrators. The army denied using live rounds. Amnesty, though, says that no one's been held accountable for the fatal violence used in the crackdown and claims that supporters of the End SARS movement have been targeted, with some having had their bank accounts frozen. The US says that it's put pressure on Eritrea to pull troops out of Ethiopia. Washington's conveyed its concerns about what it's saying are credible reports of abuses. Ethiopia, though, has denied the presence of Eritrean soldiers, despite witnesses estimating that thousands have been involved, backing Addis Ababa's conflict with fighters in the Tigray region. DR Congo's Prime Minister says that he will resign after Parliament's vote of no confidence in his government on Wednesday. That paves the way for President Felix Tshisekedi to cobble together a new majority in Parliament. 391 of 500 MPs now say that they will join his new political group known as the Sacred Union. Tshisekedi has been manoeuvring to shake off the influence of his predecessor, Joseph Kabila, whose allies have, until now, dominated the administration. Well, a graffiti artist called Saype was named one of the most influential by Forbes Magazine for his Beyond Walls movement. The creative was recently working in South Africa's Cape Town, the third of 7 African countries included in his latest project. Laura Berstecker takes a look.
Armed with a spray gun and a blueprint, Guillaume Legros gets to work in Cape Town's Philippi Township. Using this vacant lot as his canvas, the French-Swiss artist known as Saype meticulously applies stripes of black and white paint to create a massive fresco, which only reveals itself from above.
It's only together that humanity can respond to the biggest challenge of our time. And this is this message that I want to do by making huge fresco with biodegradable paint directly on the grass. It is a road-wide project, and the idea is to create the biggest human chain to speak about togetherness. And today in Cape Town, this is the 9th step of this project.
A message of solidarity which Saype hopes to help spread with his Beyond Walls series. These giant frescoes depicting interlaced hands have already sprung up in Paris, Istanbul and Turin, but also in Yamoussoukro in Ivory Coast and Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. A human chain which Saype plans to extend to some 20 countries, a way for the artist to foster a sense of unity that goes beyond walls and borders.
In a crisis time, the world is polarizing, and it's very important to share a message of hope and optimistic message to the rest of the world.
Saype traded street art for land art in 2016 when he decided to give up on walls and start painting on grass. His frescoes may be temporary, but for the graffiti artists, all that matters is that the message remains.
South African opera and jazz singer Sibongile Khumalo passed away aged 63 on Thursday. Khumalo, who sang at the 1994 inauguration of anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela, was awarded her country's second highest honor, the Presidential Order of Ikhamanga, in silver in 2008. She was an internationally renowned voice, which we will leave you with. Thanks for joining us. Do so again.
Tula when I'm Yo ndivile mama ilizwi lakho lalilikhulu Landingamamele abazali bam Landingakhathaleli ukungama